Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Mara Grujanik, and I am Family Engagement Coordinator at Stevenson High School. And today we're going to talk about responsible decision making. So just as a frame of reference, I'd like you to go back and think about a time when your teen had to make a difficult or a challenging decision. And what was the conversation around that decision-making process? Because decision-making is actually a skill that is used in the CAS competencies and social emotional learning. So when we think about responsible decision-making, we think about whether or not the person has the ability to make caring and constructive choices about their personal behavior and social interactions across a diverse amount of situations. So what that asks a student to do is make some ethical decisions and think about safety with results with regards to other people and the benefits and the consequences of their behavior around personal, social, and collective well-being standards, right? So I'm going to make this decision. How does it not only impact me, but how does it impact those around me and the well-being of all the people that I interact with? So when you think about that in terms of being one of the social emotional competencies, and I know we talk a little bit about that in our family shorts, but social emotional learning is really important at Stevenson High School, and it's integrated into all the different parts of Stevenson High School. And so what we want to ask our students to consider is a demonstration of curiosity and open-mindedness. Are they thinking about different solutions for personal and social problems? Do they think about are they learning to make a reasonable judgment after analyzing all the different parts of a situation? And can they think about the consequences of those actions? If they're just considering, if I make this decision or the other, how will that impact me? How will that also impact those around me? And that's something that you as an adult can talk to your student about. Our students are overtly discussed with how our responsible decision-making skills or critical thinking skills, right? We talk about critical thinking, useful both in the classroom, in school, and outside of school. And it asks students to reflect on their role in promoting personal and their family and their community well-being. So the well-being of those around them. And also, how will their decisions impact themselves, their family, those around them, and those in the community? So we talk about that a lot at Stevenson, but you can also support responsible decision-making because it is one of the core social emotional competencies at home by helping your student make responsible decisions. Because a lot of our students know the difference between right and wrong from a very early age, but it gets a little bit more difficult as our kids get to be teens because they feel more pressure and they feel like their peers are watching them. So it's reasonable to say, oh, hey, 15-year-old, you should know better than like not to steal. But it's more difficult for them to know they shouldn't steal if they have or cheat or something, if they have peers that are sort of coaxing them to do it. And we like to think that our students, our teens, would say, no, I'm not going to do that. But we also know that at a time when peers and peer influences are naturally so important to our teens and they play such a big role for our teens, maybe they may not make great decisions. That's not to say that they're going to go run and cheat or steal or do something like that, but they could, I don't know, be late to class or do something that normally in a normal situation, you would say my team would never do that. So one of the things that you can do is sort of help your team go through that decision-making process. So, and you can help them gain autonomy from you and be able to feel like they can make a good decision on their own if you have that discussion around making decisions with them. And again, like we talk about all the time, responsible decision making is a skill that develops over time. It is a habit of mind that happens over time. So what that means is that they may not always make the right decisions all the time. You have to know that they're going to make a bad decision. They may only make it once. They may make it twice. It may seem like, why am I going over this skill with you over and over and over? You are making such poor decisions. A lot of times it's because it's what's going into their mind, and they're being influenced by you, and they are being influenced by the world, and they are being influenced by their peers. And it's a really big developmental time. So you have to be able to be a little aware of the fact that it's not always going to be like this great smooth decision-making process. They are going to stumble and fall. What they need to know is that you are going to be there to help them reflect on their decision-making skills and help them through those bad decisions that they make. So when they're in a process of making a decision, the first thing your job is to do is to help them find different solutions, right? What are different options? I mean, like all the different options, even the really bad options. And then what are the pros and cons of each of those options, and kind of weigh them out. Now, this is probably better for a big decision. They're not going to sit down when they're making a decision with their peers and say, well, wait a minute, let me think about how this is going to impact me. But what you can do is when it's a big decision or it's a larger decision, and they can think about, it could even be like something around where do you want to go for dinner, and have just to practice the strategy of what are the different options, what are the pros and cons of all the options, right? And how will those impact the people around me, myself, the people around me, the community, depending on what the decision making is. Maybe it's where are we going to go to dinner, or what are we going to have for dinner? Maybe only one person wants to have something, but everybody else wants to have something else. And so does the majority rule, or is it a special dinner that person gets to have their special dinner? Whatever it is, to have that conversation about what are the options, how is it going to impact everybody, and then what if it doesn't go according to plan, right? So we need to help our students realize not everything, we make a decision, not everything goes the way we want that to go. And it's that piece of resilience around, if it doesn't go my way, am I still going to be okay with the solution, or am I going to be able to pivot and react appropriately for the community and the situation I'm in, and go with the flow? So I may be able to, and that's a really hard thing. It's a hard thing for all of us, right? We think it's going to take me 20 minutes to get to someplace. I know I'm going 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There shouldn't be a lot of traffic. All of a sudden, something happens and I don't have to speed. Something happens, now I'm in traffic. I can't get to where I needed to go. I didn't make the right decision around getting to the place I needed to be on time. So what our job is to help, and then through the whole thing, give a compass as to how did we do that? How did your team handle that process, right? So there needs to be a reflection point. There needs to be, hey, that worked well, or that didn't work well. What could you have done differently? What could have been done differently later? Because that's the reflective piece, is the piece that you provide as the adult in your team's life that is so critical, because it helps them develop the skill of decision making. You provide the decision making sort of compass, because sometimes teens are not able to think of all the possible consequences of a situation. And I'm not going to really say just teens, I'm going to say adolescents, because adolescence, the time of gigantic growth for our students that are in high school, doesn't end until they're 24. Yes, 24. So adolescence starts sometime around 12, 13, 14 years old and goes for an entire decade of their life when they are needing support in making decisions. They are needing your support as a mentor to help them reflect through how are they traversing this time in their life, because there's so many changes and so much growth, and their peers are really, really super important to them because their job in life is to disassociate from you. So I don't mean to be like preachy, but as a parent, when a parent or an adult in their life that they have always relied on starts telling them, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, naturally and biologically, they're trying to pull away from that adult in their life, and they're looking toward their peers to see what their peers are doing. So our best strategy is to be a mentor, more of a mentor to them, and help them think out and build habits that are going to support them as they become adults. So that is when we talk about responsible decision making, really walking through, like, so what do you think? What are all the options? How would that impact everybody? How will that benefit people or not benefit? What are you gonna do if it doesn't go according to plan? And then afterward, hey, how do you think that felt? What went well for you? What didn't go well for you? What would you do different? So that a mistake or a poor decision becomes a learning process, because really nothing's going to so negatively impact them. I mean, they may have there may be things that happen that we don't anticipate, but we use those lived experiences to generate a discussion about how decisions can be made later on and more effectively later on. Also, I don't want to ever over communicate that if you feel that your team or you need help talking with your team about decision making or anything, please remember that you have a counselor at Stevenson. You have a whole student support team at Stevenson, a counselor, a social worker, a psychologist, and a dean that are there to support you and your team's success at Stevenson, inside the classroom, outside the classroom. So don't forget that if you have questions or concerns about something that's going on with your team, you can always talk to your school counselor. I want to thank you for joining me today. Tomorrow, October 6th, we're going to talk about how to stay connected to the learning. We're going to talk thoroughly about Canvas, the interactive report card in Infinite Campus. It is your way to stay connected to what your student is learning and when things are due and their progress through Stevenson High School, and you really should know about it and be familiar with it. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow at noon. I want to thank you very much for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time to be with me, and I hope I get to see you again tomorrow. Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon. Bye, everyone.